The title of this message this morning is How Not to Be Stupid. How Not to Be Stupid. Now, some of you may not need this, but take notes for your friends, right? I'm sure some of you don't have that problem. But for the rest of us, there are some verses, and if you can see them up here, I'm going to read through those at first, and then I'll be referring to them throughout. So if you want to, again, it's kind of hard to follow along when you're in Proverbs, but if you want to open up the Proverbs and just flip around, you'll find something good. So I'm going to read through these. Proverbs 15:5 says, "A fool rejects his father's discipline, but he who regards reproof is sensible." Proverbs 15:31 and 32, "He whose ear listens to the life-giving reproof will dwell among the wise. He who neglects discipline despises himself, but he who listens to reproof acquires understanding." Proverbs 10:17 says, "He is on the path of life who heeds instruction, but he who ignores reproof goes astray." Proverbs 12:1 "Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid." Key verse for us. And Proverbs 3:11 and 12. "My son, do not reject the discipline of the Lord, or loathe his reproof. For whom the Lord loves, he reproves, even as a father corrects the son in whom he delights." So when we look at being stupid, we might think of things, hopefully, like we would never do. We always look at someone else and say, that's stupid, like jumping into a cactus, or trying to fly off a roof, or trying to outrun cops. These are things we see on TV shows, right? And we say, well, that's stupid. The definition of stupid is having or showing a great lack of intelligence or common sense. So, for example, I could argue that it is stupid to not seek counsel before getting married or making a major life decision. It is stupid to text and drive, or drink and drive, or be tired and drive. It is stupid to co-sign a loan. It is stupid to cheat on your taxes, or cheat on a test, or cheat on your spouse, or cheat on anything. It is stupid to not ask questions. But of all the things we could talk about stupid, and by the way, it's a real popular phrase. I'll see if I can get this to, maybe you have to do it for me. Try again. There we go. Okay, I found some of these phrases. The concept of not being stupid is really popular right now. So keep calm and don't be stupid. Keep smart and don't be stupid. Follow your heart but don't be stupid. Be good but don't be stupid. Be loyal but don't be stupid. Study hard and don't be stupid. 2 rules of leadership. You probably read that, but don't be stupid and don't be a jerk. Some good stuff. But probably if I had to pick one of them, my favorite one is a John Wayne quote. "Life is tough, but it's even tougher if you're stupid." All right? So I firmly believe that everyone in this room anyway doesn't want to be stupid. You don't want to do anything stupid or say anything stupid. But if we're honest, we'll find that there's times that we put ourselves in that stupid category. If we're honest. Now, do you know that there are warning signs on a hammer that says hammer away from face? It's on there. Who would ever do that? Well, one summer as a teenager, I was working with my dad on a deck, and we were putting on spindles. It's like the railing things. This is before the era of nail guns, where you just like push the thing and it fires on you. It's really easy. This was an awkward position to put this spindle in. I couldn't see what I was doing, and you have to get in the right angle to swing the hammer. And guess what happened? Yeah, that's right. I hammered towards my face, and the hammer hit me right below my eye and drew blood and left a little mark there. And guess how fun that was for the next week when I had to explain to people, and they asked, "Hey, what happened to your face?" "Oh, I hammered towards my face. They should put a warning on those hammers." Oh, they do. Now, maybe none of you have ever done anything that stupid, but again, take notes for your friends who need to hear this morning. I'm going to give you the secret of how not to be stupid. But first, we have to describe what stupidity is. Stupidity is, like I said in the definition, showing a lack of common sense. So Hebrews 12:1 says, "He who hates reproof is stupid." So before I share with you how not to be stupid, let's look at what stupidity is. I gave you the definition already, having or showing a great lack of intelligence or common sense. Stupidity is also sometimes referred to as being brutish or acting like a beast. However, I know we have enough animal lovers here to acknowledge that animals sometimes act with way more common sense than humans do. So I'm not even sure if that's the best definition. Stupidity can mean, we talk about lack of common sense, but it could also mean going astray, or erring, or being misled. Proverbs 10:17 says, "He is on the path of life who heeds instruction, but he who ignores reproof goes astray." Now the problem with talking about being stupid is that I have so many personal illustrations, and it's kind of hard to share. Stacy and I went to a timeshare presentation so we could get a free weekend away. You get those all the time, listen to their spiel, you get a free weekend. Most people go through that, listen to the talk, get the free weekend, and run away. But of course, that didn't happen to me. I managed to get myself signed up for something that I only used for once in like 10 years. I also once had a vending machine business in the Twin Cities. Now, the business itself was not the worst decision I've ever made. It wasn't the best decision I ever made, or even close, but it was more not the decision, but how I made the decision. I was talking to the sales guy on the phone, and I was saying how I needed to talk that decision over with my wife. She wasn't home yet, and I needed to consult with her. So he started challenging my manhood and my ability to make decisions on my own. Well, who's in charge of this family anyway, he said. And again, most people would have just laughed him off and hung up, but not me. I had to decide that I would show him by making that decision right here and now. And I ended up having to service those machines for the next 3 years or so, when I could have been investing my time in other things that I think would have been better. In both those cases of stupidity, as I reflected on them painfully this week, it was my pride that prodded me forward. I wanted to prove that I could do it. Nobody really likes to talk about all the stupid things they've done. I don't bring up these examples so you can lose faith in me or feel sorry for me, but I'm hoping that by doing so, really we would have a place where we can be honest with each other and recognize that there are all times when we struggle with stupidity. The stupidity comes from going astray or making bad decisions. It also comes includes despising yourself. This is an interesting thing. Proverbs 15:32 says, "He who neglects discipline despises himself." You think about this. When you do something stupid, you feel stupid, and you prefer not to think about it. You prefer not to talk about it. You don't think too highly of yourself for good reason, because you just did something stupid. Every time for 3 years when I serviced those vending machines, I was reminded of my stupidity, and I was despising myself. But here's the problem. This is a vicious downward cycle. Stupidity begets stupidity. The more stupid things we say and do, the more we despise ourselves. And the more we despise ourselves, the more convinced we are that all we can do and say are stupid things. And we start to believe that. I do hope there's a way out of this stupidity problem. Well, Proverbs talks about the contrast. If we want to avoid stupidity, what is it that we want to work towards? And Proverbs describes that as being sensible or sensibility. So Proverbs 15:5 says, "He who regards reproof is sensible." Another way you could define sensible is use the word prudent. Prudent is acting with or showing care and thought for the future. You're thinking about the bigger picture. You're thinking beyond just the immediate decision and step that you're in front of you right now. Thankfully, I have some examples of prudence in my life too. When I was considering marrying Stacy, we went to college together, so we had a lot of mutual friends. So I went to those mutual friends who both knew us both, and I said, "Hey, Stacy and I are spending time together. I'm really considering asking her to marry me. What do you think of that?" And I got their opinion. I asked my parents what they thought of Stacy, and they told me to put a ring on her before she ran away. So that was good advice. So that was prudent. I was seeking advice from others, thinking beyond the future, getting perspective beyond myself. Being sensible is also dwelling among the wise. This is part of a promise at the end of Proverbs 15. There's a few of them, but Proverbs 15:31 says, "He whose ear listens to the life-giving reproof will dwell among the wise." So when you choose to be around people who are growing spiritually and are challenging you to take your walk with Christ more seriously, that's dwelling with the wise. For me, in high school, it was making a decision to attend a Friday morning Bible study. There was 2 to 5 people there every Friday morning before school started. And that helped me grow in my faith. I accepted Christ in 8th grade, so I was a brand new believer. For me, I'm not saying this for everybody, but for me it was deciding to go to a Christian school. I needed to surround myself with more wisdom and more godly people than I had been around in my high school days. It could be deciding to be involved in a Christian Oregon campus instead of just thinking you can live your faith on your own, or deciding to spend time around leaders instead of just attenders. And there's a difference. Dwelling among the wise is spending time with people who are smarter than you, who have this relationship to Jesus that you admire, who are more creative or bold or more gracious that you want to be. It's like having role models. And we never outgrow those. It's not like you don't have role models when you're a kid and then you stop. I think we always need to have role models. That is dwelling among the wise. Being sensible is also growing the inner man. Proverbs 15:32 says, "He who listens to reproof acquires understanding." That's the NASB version. The footnote says acquires heart. And if you remember our conversations about when the Bible talks about heart, it's not talking about like the thing that beats within us. It's not even talking about just the emotions, but it's really talking about the inner man, the mind, the will, the heart, the understanding. All of that, our inner person is wrapped up into that. And so when that verse says, "He who listens to reproof acquires understanding," it's building your inner man. It's strengthening who you are at the deepest core. That's a good thing, to be sensible. So in one way you could say being sensible is looking at opportunities with an eternal perspective. So when you're trying to make a decision, saying, well, will my inner man grow from joining an evangelism team, doing something I've never done before? Will my inner man grow from knocking on my neighbor's doors and getting to know them? Will I grow spiritually from reading a chapter of Proverbs every day this summer? Or for praying for an hour with other believers? Will I grow spiritually from making sure that I get every moment of my favorite sports team? It's harder to recognize that. Will I grow spiritually if I make sure I get every episode of my favorite TV show? Will I grow spiritually spending a day in nature or spending a day in the city? Will I grow spiritually from spending a day alone or a day with friends? See, the answer to these questions, some of them, the ones on top, are kind of more obvious, but at the end, they may not always be the same for every person or even for every day in our lives. There are times we need to be in the cities. There are times we need to be in God's creation. There are times we need to be alone and times we need to be with others. The point I'm trying to get at is this. The question we should be asking is, what will grow my inner man? What will help me acquire more heart? Can God use these things in my life? Well, God can use anything, but we don't want to be an obstacle for God in our own lives. So now we've talked about what it means to be stupid. We want to avoid that. What it means to be sensible. We've talked about this. Now, how do we not be stupid? There's an important thing here, and you've probably seen it. We choose stupidity and sensibility based on how we respond to reproof. I don't know if you caught that word. Almost every verse that we read had the word reproof in it. Well, what is reproof? It's not a word we use a whole lot here, but now, a reproof is like a scolding or a rebuke. A rebuke is being reprimanded or strongly chastised, or being even restrained. Reproof can be being corrected or punished or chastised. A reproof can be being instructed or disciplined. That is training someone to obey the rules. In this case, it would be God's rules, or to correct the disobedience. Sometimes that involves punishment. In other words, a reproof is when you're doing something wrong and somebody else lets you know about it. And again, the key here thing is, if you're going to be stupid or sensible, it's how do we respond to a reproof when someone lets us know about the thing we're doing that is wrong. A reproof generally is words. It's usually verbal, something that somebody says to you, but it could also just be a look. Usually moms are good at that. They have that built-in reproving look. Or it could be an action. And the reality is nobody likes to be reproved. But if we want to not be stupid and we want to be sensible, we need to think twice about how we're being reproved and how we respond to that. So I want to talk about those responses. So the stupid response and the sensible response to being reproved. So the first one of being stupid, stupid response is to reject reproval. Proverbs 15:5, a fool rejects his father's discipline. Proverbs 3:11, my son, do not reject the discipline of the Lord or loathe his reproof. Now the verb reject has several sort of shades or layers of meaning. Reject can simply mean to refuse to accept an idea of something. So for example, if you don't believe space aliens live on Earth, you reject that idea. That's one, you just don't believe it. But reject can also mean, it can go a little deeper than that, and it can mean to like turn something down with contempt. In other words, it's like if you reject something with contempt, you're saying this idea is worth even considering. It's worthless. It's just ridiculous. And so when we're talking about rejecting reproof, we're talking about that deeper, like, I just completely think this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And along with that comes the concept of like being disgusted. Like, I can't believe you even said that. Or a hatred. You might hate the messenger or hate the words that are being said. Again, Proverbs 12:1 says, he who hates reproof is stupid. So we start, that hatred gets to come in there. The emotions that go with rejection would best be described as loathing or abhorring. This is a strong rejection. This isn't just like rejecting an idea. There's a lot of emotion that goes behind it. So, when your spouse or coworker corrects you, and you fire back with criticisms of your own, or you complain about how they could have corrected you in a better way, they didn't do it, they weren't sensitive when they did it. Or if you don't like what they say and you start attacking their character, you start thinking less of them, all of these responses are examples of rejecting discipline. You're taking what's coming towards you, and instead of learning from it, you're passing it on to someone else. You're saying, it's their problem. It's because of what they said, or they didn't do it right. If we reject reproof in that way, if we pass the blame to someone else, that is stupid. To be stupid, we can also neglect discipline. Proverbs 15:32, he who neglects discipline despises himself. Again, we talked about what it means to despise yourself and what that looks like. Here's another way you could look at neglecting discipline. If you start to believe such lies like, this is just the way I am. I could never change or improve in that area. I don't need to pay attention to that. I'll never use that again. Or I'll never be in that situation again. In some ways, I would describe the neglect mentality as sort of an Eeyore mentality, if you know from Winnie the Pooh. You know, just sort of, this is life. I have no choice. This is just going to happen to me anyway. And you just give up on the very best that God has designed for you. And you accept mediocrity. That is neglecting discipline. If you despise yourself by never growing from discipline, that is stupid. And the third way to be stupid is to ignore reproof. Proverbs 10:17. He who ignores reproof goes astray. This is where, beyond neglecting something, it goes beyond this, where we even refuse to take notice of what someone is trying to tell us. We intentionally disregard their warnings or their corrections. Or when we walk away from and leave good counsel or advice that we've been given. We just say, I don't even have to listen to that. Just ignore it. And I don't know how many Merle Haggard fans we have here, but I grew up listening to that kind of music. And there's a great song called Mama Tried. And the chorus says this, I turned 21 in prison, doing life without parole. No one could steer me right, but Mama tried. I ignored her. Mama tried. Mama tried to raise me better, but her pleading I denied. I ignored it. That leaves only me to blame, because Mama tried. We'll sing that. That'll be a worship song on Sunday. It'll be great. So you think about, like, a lot of times you think about, wow, the way I was raised this way, and then we just give up on it. We ignore it. We decide to go our own way. And that's what Proverbs says. It says, if you ignore reproof, you go astray. Well, think about driving. Now, maybe, I don't know if you even notice this. Probably when you first get your license you do. But when you're driving, we are actually making countless little corrections to keep the car where it should be. I mean, it depends on your alignment too, how much you have to do that. But even a really well-aligned car, you still have to make tiny little corrections. And if we don't do that, within minutes, we're going to be in the ditch or on the other side of the road. So likewise, if we ignore reproof, it's just a matter of time before we don't want to. Let me try that again. We are where we don't want to be, doing what we don't want to do, with people we don't want to be with. Welcome to stupid. That's what stupidity looks like. Now, we don't want to be stupid, but we need to know, because the reality is we see it in our lives. We need to know what that looks like, but we want to be sensible. So how should we respond to reproof? We don't want to reject it or neglect it or ignore it. Well, how should we respond to it? Well, one way is to regard discipline. Proverbs 15:5. He who regards reproof is sensible. If we're regarding something, it means we are considering it. We're thinking about it. We're paying attention to it. It's happening in our mind. It's the way we're thinking. Our minds are regarding reproof. Now, someone might reprove us poorly. So yes, we could spend our time thinking about how they could have done it better, or we could say, man, spend all of our mental energy passing the blame to something else, or we could regard and think about what they said. Even if they didn't communicate it very well, often there's still truth in it. Even if it's communicated poorly, there's still truth in it that we could receive and do something about it. We could use all of our energy thinking about the reasons we don't need to pay attention to that person who's correcting us. They're not even in charge of me. They're not my boss. I didn't ask them for advice. Or we could consider that they're just trying to help us and take to heart their comments. Now, I probably need to say here that just because someone gives us a reproof doesn't mean we have to accept everything that comes our way. We need to turn it over to the Lord, but I think that's part of it. That's regarding it. It's saying, okay, I'm going to take what you said. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to give it to the Lord. And if the Lord confirms what you've said, then I need to do something about it. But sometimes people just, complain. And we don't have to, I'm not saying take that all in, but I am saying take regard. Pay attention to it. Which goes to the second part then, to listen to it. And then if it is from the Lord, if the Lord confirms it, to also obey it. You can't separate those two. That's why I put them together. So our minds regard, our ears listen. Proverbs 15:31-32. He whose ear listens to the life-giving reproof will dwell among the wise. He who listens to reproof acquires understanding. So first of all, notice that reproof is life-giving. When we are reproved, we usually kind of think, oh, that's negative, I don't like that. But it's actually giving us life. When we listen, our lives are better, they're stronger, they're richer, they're more full. When we're willing to receive those things. Also, notice here, there's promises when we listen to reproof. And we've talked about them before. When we listen to reproof, we will dwell among the wise. We will be among the wise, and we'll become wiser ourselves too. And when we listen to reproof, we will acquire understanding. Again, not just understanding, but heart will grow as a person in our inner man. And so we have great reason to want to listen. And then also to go with that, we need to give heed. So that's the way Proverbs 10:17 says it. He is on the path of life who heeds instruction. That is obedience. Listening can't be separated from obeying. So sometimes when my kids are doing their chore, for example, I would say, did you hear me ask you to unload the dishwasher? And they'll say, yes, I did. And then I'll ask them, how can I tell from your actions that you heard me? Because if you heard me, but you're still sitting there and the dishwasher is still full, it doesn't look like you heard me. Did you listen? You can say, yeah, I heard you. But if obedience isn't connected, you really didn't hear. But when we listen and obey, then, Proverbs says, we're on the path of life. We're making those little corrections along the way that keep us on the road and out of the ditch. Little corrections are much better than big corrections. If Jim was here, he'd confirm that. So we need to regard reproof, listen and obey. That's our mind, our ears, our actions, but also our emotions. The way that we feel about receiving reproof makes a difference. Proverbs 12:1 says, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge. Somewhere along our parenting life, we picked up this phrase that says, obedience is right away, all the way, with a happy heart. And that last part, the happy heart component, is really important, and it often gets left out. So you can obey, you can do something, and you can all just be in a huff. You can all stick with unloading the dishwasher. You can be unloading the dishwasher and pulling out and throwing the plates on the ground and maybe drop one because you don't care, or you're throwing stuff like slamming the doors when you're putting the cups in the cupboards. That's not obedience. Well, you say, I'm unloading the dishwasher. No, that's not obedience. Or you can wait till you get asked to do it 4 or 5 times and then you do it. Well, that's not right away. But if the heart is not happy, if we're not excited about the fact that we're being disciplined, then really we're not getting the full advantage of that discipline. Avoiding stupidity isn't just for our minds, it's not just for our actions, but it's also for our emotions. If we love discipline, that's what Proverbs says, whoever loves discipline, then we need to show that in the way that we respond to people. So if we say we want to grow and learn and become a better person, but we don't like being corrected, then the truth is that we don't love knowledge. To love knowledge, we have to love discipline and correction. Not just tolerate it or put up with it, but crave it, seek it, welcome it when people offer it. Even if it's people we don't like, even if they do it in a way that we don't like or we don't think is that great. To be sensible, we want to regard reproof, listen to and obey instructions, and love discipline. I want to go back to what I said. We choose stupidity or sensibility based on how we respond to reproof. So the next time you get a reproof in your life, think about how you will respond. Decide today not to be stupid. Don't reject, neglect, or ignore the correction. Instead, respond sensibly. Think about what was said. Listen to it. Change your actions. Respond to the messenger gratefully as someone who is helping you grow. May the Lord help us to be open and to learn from the reproof in our lives.